Hello and welcome to Everybody Dice podcast number 61. I am Steve and today I am joined by
Ian. Am I
and
always here?
It's Daryl. No, we swapped places.
I think it moves. It just depends how Skype sets things up. I don't know. Unless you can easily move things around on Skype.
Daryl's the dirty little bottom dweller this time.
Oh, there
I'm
we
the
go.
bottom feeder, boys. Oh, I prefer being the bottom feeders.
Really? Okay.
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
No, let me feed on the bottoms.
Oh!
I demand bottom.
There we go then.
That means, Stephen, that me and you are the upper echelon of this team, and he's the bottom feeder.
Do you remember when we played the game with the fish and my parasitic bottom feeders won the game?
Yeah.
I am the parasitic bottom feeder.
Is that Ocean?
It was Oceans, yeah.
Nice.
With my weird
Call me
whale eating things. Or
parasitic bottom feeder.
yeah.
Is my camera frozen?
No, you are A-okay. God, it feels like we're just setting up for this here, but we really are recording the podcast right now.
It's free flowing.
It is
We'll do the sound check now. Guys, you can listen in on our sound check.
okay.
It's like a
I've
little
got to say,
behind the
I've-
scenes.
rather have a bowl of...
Coco.
Puffs. That was weird. When you went, I'd rather have a bowl of. Something went bing, and I'm like, where's that coming from?
So what's supposed to happen though is you're supposed to say of Cocoa Pops, but like straight afterwards, and that way we can tell the level of latency between what we're saying.
Oh, we're not doing the
But
clapping.
because you guys stood and watched and stared at me for approximately 10 seconds, we've no idea what level of latency we have.
Fine.
Honestly, I thought it was
Like-
mine, so
Like, we were talking fine before this, so I don't think that's so much of an issue. Anyway,
we're back in the room.
we are back in the room. I think this is the first time we've done a podcast with all us three right from the beginning for a while.
Yeah, I think because the last one you dropped in, didn't you? And then before that, I think I was away.
I don't.
Can't
It's the
remember.
Gregorian calendar, so I wouldn't be able to tell you.
All right, fair enough. But either way, it is fucking hot at the moment. So,
Dirty hot.
yep, very, very warm. Yeah, it does get warm here in England from time to time. And
It's that very rare by occasions.
yeah, this is one of those times. So, yeah, if there's any sound of traffic or anything else like that over the course of this, it's because the windows are wide open here. But yeah, how are you guys anyway?
If you hear someone screaming, "It's coming home,"
Oh, for God's sake, please don't.
that'll be
As
because
the resident non-football interested in any form of sportsman here, please can you refrain from mentioning anything to do with football? I know that you're wearing football, but please do not.
this is actually a football. This is what they call it.
You're wearing a
The
football. Exactly.
official term.
I have
I'm
concept.
wearing the football. I play the football.
You
I
are
am.
the football.
The football.
Jeez. Thank you for explaining the sport to me. Now I have an understanding of why people get paid millions to be the
You are
football.
now qualified to be a referee.
Could you imagine? Just going on there.
Here's
He
the
did it.
football.
He
Red
did
card.
Here's your first question on the test. Explain the offside rule, Daryl.
There's a handbag, and it's like having a handbag that you have. What?
Basically, you get the salt and the pepper shakers,
Yeah.
and the pepper shaker is the attacker, and the salt shaker is the defender. If the pepper shaker is closer to the opposition goal than the salt shaker, so let's say the vinegar. So if the pepper shaker is closer to the vinegar than the salt, and the ball is passed to the, let's say the chip is passed to the pepper shaker. When the
Right.
pepper shaker is closer to the vinegar than it is to the salt, then it is offside. However, should it be in line with the salt or further back towards its own vinegar, when the chip is thrown at it, passed to it, then it's not offside.
Everyone, welcome to Everybody Dice, episode 63, where Dow learns the offside rule, which is using chips, vinegar, and salt.
I'll explain it to you next time we're in a pub.
Oh, please don't, because I feel like that's such a condescending move.
I'll mansplain it to you.
Oh, no. Steve, save us!
It's time
Talk
for the
about-
news.
The news.
All right, so first up in the news, we have got Unfathomable. This is a new game from Fantasy Flight and is in with the Arkham Files kind of series of games. It kind of like there were teasers for it across lots of social media for a little while, and I think people kind of figured out it was going to be this because there was talk a little while back about a reissue of Battlestar Galactica, and they thought this was it. Remember, like a few podcasts ago, where we were talking about Battlestar Galactica, and it was like I think it was mentioned that we thought it might be way higher up the list on Board Game Geek,
Yeah.
just because of its license and some fans and stuff like that. It turns out people just love the game because people are very, very excited about this. Because the reason, copies of Battlestar Galactica go for about $200, something like that these days.
Something crazy.
Yeah, and so people were just really happy that they've now, rather than trying to reacquire the license for Battlestar Galactica, they're just going to attach a whole new theme to it. Although it's not 100% confirmed that this is going to be just a complete reissue of Battlestar Galactica with a new skin. We don't know all the details on how it's going to play yet, how different it's going to be, or anything like that. But this seems to generally be good news for the board gaming community, because no one ever likes to see games go out of print.
No.
Like, I think, just on the topic, whilst we're talking about things going out of print, Z-Man Games are bringing a lot of their games. They're stopping to print them soon. So they're doing a final printing of Tales of the Arabian Nights, which is a great game. Luckily, I do have a copy of it, but they've also announced that they're stopping printings of a lot of games, like I think Tigris and Euphrates and Ra. Again, really popular games that are just going to go out of print soon, and they're not going to be available anymore. So if you've ever had your eye on those games, I would snap them up quick, because they're going to get very expensive soon. But yeah, it just goes to show that a good game is always going to find its way back eventually. It's something I know Tom Vassell on the Dice Tower always says. Like, if a game is good, it will get reprinted eventually. Don't go out your way to spend massive amounts of money in acquiring a copy of something that in a couple of years' time will just be released at retail price. However, that is not to say that this is going to be very cheap. I think they've already said that this is going to be retailing at $79.99, which I think compared to Battlestar Galactica, I think if I remember right, that was generally retailing at about £40 before. So, there's
inflation
defense.
also better than spending $200. And
Well,
in theory,
100%.
you'd hope that they increase the quality of some of the processes in between.
Well, I think the main thing about this one is they're bringing miniatures into it, which I don't think Battlestar Galactica had miniatures.
I think it had ships and stuff like that,
Did it,
but it didn't have miniatures like this, I don't think.
Yeah. So, this looks like... I was saying to Steve before about this, where they look a bit like the... is it Cthulhu Wars?
A Cthulhu Wars, yeah.
Yeah, it's that kind of style of quite chunky, kind of almost... like statuette kind of figure, and I mean that I'm not 100% sure what that one is. I guess it's Cthulhu, maybe something similar. It's an absolute beast of a miniature compared to the rest. I think it looks a really good game, and I know we kind of said that we would be really interested in playing it because it's got a nice kind of hidden role thing again. And the minimum player I think was free on this, so it could really be interesting to see one of us being. I think it was it? Is there 3 options on this one? Human, Deep One, and Demon. Human, Deep One, and Hybrid.
Yeah.
I think it could be quite fun, like especially being trapped on a little boat. The board looks quite nice. Reminds me a bit of the Jaws game in a weird way. But I don't know. I definitely would play it.
I mean, yeah, to put things into perspective here, like Battlestar Galactica, the idea was you were travelling towards a space station. You were about 2-3 days away from it. And someone turns up murdered, and you kind of have to try and safely guide the ship into the space station whilst trying to figure out who is deliberately trying to sabotage you. This one, they've obviously said it that you're on a steamliner and you're 2 or 3 days away from port. So no escape or anything like that. If you want to try and survive, you've got to stay on the ship, which is a really cool way of kind of like framing this, because I suppose you often have in games like Dead of Winter, like, oh, there's a traitor in your midst. Why don't we all just split into groups of people we can trust and leave and go somewhere? On this one, you actually can't. You're kind of like trapped with the people you're in there with, and you need to both figure out who's working against you, whilst also trying to bring it back into port, basically. It's great that people are going to be able to play this again. Like the production, like the pictures of what we can actually see at the moment, it looks really, really neat. But like they say, they don't know quite yet just how different it is from Battlestar Galactica, what's different, what they might add in, what they might have taken away. So yeah, I suppose we will just see from there. Have you guys played many Hidden Traitor games before?
Yeah.
Like in terms of...
This is definitely... I know I've never played Battlestar Galactica.
No.
Yeah. But you guys
is one I've had an eye on.
Yeah, you guys haven't played Dead of Winter, have you? Or
I have, yeah. I played it with you guys. Well, I've definitely played it with you, Stephen, I think.
Yeah.
The full game where you go off and like go for resources and you take people with you and you don't know who's... Yeah, I really enjoyed that. There was another one we played, I swear to God, that was like... I don't know if it was... I swear there's something else that we've played that's like
there is. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I know there's things I've got like Dark Moon and things like that, but I haven't played that in
I suppose to some
years.
extent, the House on the Haunted Hill one's kind of similar, isn't it?
Yeah, they do
Betrayal
definitely
at House,
have
like
that,
in a similar way, yeah.
Yeah.
But the difference is with that one, you never know who's going to be the traitor, which is kind of fun. But with this, I suppose it'd be...
You would know from the beginning.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to this one. It's a game that's definitely on my list of stuff I really want to get.
Yeah, 100%. It's got a nice theme as well. There's something about the artwork. I know we only seen like little snippets of it, but I really like the kind of board and some of the like "you are a human, you are a hybrid" cards. I know it's silly little things like that, but they're actually quite nice themed wise. They seem a little bit less macabre, I guess, from like the other stuff they do in the series. You know, like the Arkham Horror game and the Arkham card game and stuff like that.
I mean, that is something that's worth bringing up as well. Looking at it, it looks like they haven't recycled artwork, which they tend to do across all these Arkham Files games.
Tend to do that across a lot of their
they do
a lot of the IPs that they run. So a lot of the Star Wars stuff you see reoccurring artworks for like character cards and cards on X-Wing stuff for not Legion. What's the card game called?
Oh, the Dice
Destiny.
Destiny,
yeah. There was a few bits of art there that I remember going, oh, is that's cool, and then oh, that's familiar, and I don't hate it because it's nice art, but it's nice to see that is a quality style thing that I feel like they're going really hard in on a lot of the Arkham Horror stuff. There's a lot of Arkham Horror stuff coming out.
Oh yes,
I mean, that's a good thing, but it's nice that they're keeping it fresh with
a new thing. Art. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether people might start to get tired of everything being switched to the kind of like H.P. Lovecraft style setting for everything. I don't mind it personally. No,
I've got nothing with it.
I'm quite happy.
It's our current kink of the week. Like we've had zombies, we've had like that'll be the kink for the foreseeable, and then we'll move on to something else. I'm sure. Like it's the same with video games and stuff. They go just crazes that just happen, and at the moment there's a lot of popularity behind the sort of Cthulhu style mythos stuff, which I'm not opposed to, but I'm sure at one point there'll be a sudden flick switch and everyone will go, oh, we'll do vampires now, everything's a vampire.
Woohoo!
Oh, that might just come up later. But for the meantime, let's stick with Arkham Horror, because there's been a little bit of an update on how Fantasy Flight are going to be distributing their Arkham Horror game. So normally with the Arkham Horror card game, you'll get a deluxe box at the beginning of the cycle. Then you'll have a series of 5 or 6 booster packs, which come in like blister packs that will get added to it. And they always offered, like every single pack, including the blisters as well, offered kind of a mix of character cards and scenario cards. So across buying the whole cycle, you get quite a lot of stuff over time. But it's always been a little bit difficult because you'll often find that there's usually 1 or 2 blisters in the cycle that are difficult to get hold of. So sometimes that can derail a campaign sometimes when you hit a point where you just can't carry on because the cards aren't available at this moment and are awaiting another printing. So what they've done is they've announced that there are simply just going to be 2 releases per cycle from now on. There's going to be a character box and there is going to be a scenario box. So the entire campaign will be in one box and all of the extra character bits you would associate with getting in a cycle will all be in another one. I think, wasn't it... I know it roughly translates to around £95 if you were to buy both of them, I think.
Yeah, I think it was one was 30 something, and one was 50. I think. I mean, they do have it on Fantasy Flight's website as the price, but obviously it's dollars at the moment. I don't know if we'll be getting it. Usually we get $59.95 and $39.95. I imagine ours will be roughly the same. Usually is with these kind of things.
Yeah, and I mean, again, this is another one of these things where right now we don't know whether this is going to be a good or a bad thing. It's going to be good in terms of you're just simply, if you want the campaign, you just have to buy one thing, and then you've got the whole thing right there. The question is this going to give them the excuse to scale it down a little bit? That bit we're not too sure of right now, because within the press release that Fantasy Flight did, they said that most of the content will be there.
Yeah, it was a really weird way of wording it. It was like, yeah, you kind of like, it's either it is or it isn't, but they've done it in a way that's like, you'll get 250 cards and 5 investigators. Well, we were trying to work out realistically how many you would get per cycle, because initially you would have the 5 investigators in the set. They would come with a few options. You're meant to kind of mix them in from, say, the start or core set or extra sets or whatever. And then with every subsequent set, like Stephen was saying, they've got like, I don't know, I want to say like maybe 20 cards, possibly maybe less, of like kind of about 4 of each kind of set. So it'd be interesting to see how that works. But it's more we were trying to work out how many parts of a campaign there are, because they're saying there's about 300 bits to this. So over 300 scenarios, and we weren't really sure if you add it all together how much you're getting.
So give me a moment, because I worked out just how much money that you were saving. I just need to find it now, but I think, considering that if you bought these 2 boxes together, like I say, you're going to be spending between £95 and £100. I believe if you were to buy all 6 blisters and the deluxe pack, I think it actually works out at it's roughly £120 usually by the time you've bought the entire cycle. That's not including the Return 2 box that you have, which the Return 2 boxes kind of both gave you a storage solution for your cards, but also gave you the option of exchanging out any of the scenarios for a more difficult challenge. God knows you need it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But if you include the Return 2 box at RRP, it would actually bring the whole thing up to £150 at the moment if you were to buy an entire cycle in its entirety. So, as such, right now it looks like you're making a saving. I am going to predict right now that this will not have any of the Return 2 content in it.
It'd be crazy to think they might. If they were to do that, then 100% this seems like a win-win for consumers. But like you say, The other thing is as well whether it's because normally where you only get the starter box, there's not enough room to fit. I mean, you could take out the cardboard and make your own thing, and people sell like foam inserts and stuff. But like you say, the one of the nice parts about the return to, if you were that way inclined, you could bin off all the other packaging and just have like a kind of solid brick box kind of system with everything in, and it's got enough room to fit a lot of the core stuff as well. So if you take it to a game night, it's great because it's just one big slab with everything in it, and it has room to fit. I mean, I've put a dice bag in there, tokens, everything. You can get pretty much all you want in it, which is really good. It saves you having to bring like 4 boxes plus all the little blister packs. I don't know.
I mean,
There
yeah,
is.
I've binned off all my old boxes. I just stick
Did
to
you
the
actually bin
return
them?
to. Yeah, I just stick to the return
Wow.
to boxes, and that's it. Yeah.
I tell you one thing that does kind of excite me about this though is they've announced that they're going to be doing dual cards.
Yeah, I saw.
So where normally you're like a seeker or a guardian or a scavenger or sorry survivor or one of those kind of smuggler type systems, they're now doing it where a lot of the cards you can use as like asset cards, they're going to have both icons on them, so you could use them in either deck. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see where it's going to work with these new cards, how they kind of function, because you can use them as either a guardian deck. There's one where they've got a picture of it's like a medical student. You can either use it as a guardian or a seeker deck. So that's going to be kind of interesting how you can now reformat a lot of your old decks. I don't know. I think they've added a few new little things to this, and it will be nice to see it. We were talking about it before, me and Steve. We're not sure separating the character deck from the campaign deck, if you will. I think that's one of the nice things about it. When you bought a new campaign, you got like this whole new set of fresh characters, and you knew that you could sort of start a new adventure with them. I mean, I know that the whole point of Arkham is you can swap and change and move investigators wherever you want. So you can have people from the core set all the way up to the new stuff, or you can have people from like say 3 or 4 cycles in, like the Dunwich Legacy or something like that, bringing that back into. So there's a lot of replay value in changing it and switching it. So it's never really been a case of you have to stick with the set that's come out. So like these characters are for this and these characters are for this and all this kind of stuff. I just wonder if it might take away that level of kind of mix and matching. Do you know what I mean? Because it's kind of like, well, if you just want the story, great, but you might be missing out on having some new cool characters. Like they have got some nice looking cards for these characters, and they do look kind of interesting characters. But I don't know. It's a bit of a weird. It's a weird concept at the moment because it's been done so much like the original way. But
Well,
I don't know.
I think it's, if anything, it's just offering more flexibility, really. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think you ever have to feel like you have to buy these characters because they're associated with this campaign. You may actually be already playing through. Maybe you're someone that's just gotten all the content for 3 different cycles. So at the moment, all you want is that extra content of player cards and stuff like that, just to improve that a bit. So you may just want the character box, but if someone wants to get into the scenario, they can do. Which, by the way, the setting for this one is awesome. It's like frozen wasteland kind of thing.
Yeah. It's like the Antarctic. It looks great.
Yeah, it looks a bit akin to if they were following the Mountains of Madness, the At the Mountains of Madness story. So it looks like they're going down that route at the moment. Lots
Yeah.
of really cool stuff, like in the cards, like pack animals and stuff like that. It's just, it's just generally quite a cool theme. It always works best when you're working with this whole level of isolation and stuff like that, which we're very much getting in here. Some of the characters look quite cool as well. I think so far they've shown off Lily Chen, who is a martial artist, and Norman Withers, who is an astronomer. So again, looks like it's quite cool the way that you're already going to be getting one character that's going to be quite combat focused, and another that's obviously going to be involved in research and stuff like that already. So that's kind of neat.
So one of the things I really like, which they've done again, which is really really cool, is there's an expedition team. So it's like a separate deck of allies,
Yeah.
and they literally have like their own health and sanity and stuff like that. So if they do go, they're gone, and you've lost a key member of your team. So I love there's this kind of level of like the one I've been playing, the Forgotten Age one. I like the fact there's like supplies, and you have to think about eating and drinking and all this kind of stuff. And I like there's almost like an RPG element to it. Whereas this is going to be like you've got to then also keep your camp and everyone in your camp healthy and stop going mad and stuff like that. And it does say that it's going to be a kind of interesting it was like a new branching narrative a lot. I don't know if it's going to be any different to some of the other stuff, but it does seem like they're kind of trying to make it a bit more fluid and changing how it plays. I mean, again, we're going to have to wait till it comes out, and I guarantee one of us will get probably all of it. But yeah.
Well, it's not going to be particularly hard to hunt it all down this time.
No,
so
this is the thing we were saying, because I know like I've been trying to complete some of my cycle. Well, I've only got the 2 cycles, but trying to get it wasn't even the last packet. It was trying to get the 5th packet out of the 6, which is just flat out impossible. And the way that it used to be with Fantasy Flight, you could go on their upcoming stuff and it would tell you they're reprinting. They don't seem to do that anymore. They just don't really give you information, so you never know. You're just lucky they just turn up and they come back to your local gaming store. But otherwise, you've just got to scour, like hope that you're going to find it. But yeah, hopefully it will make it a little bit easier.
Okay, so moving away from that into something not HP Lovecraft related.
Hey.
Trails has been announced. You're probably going to straight away recognise this as very similar artwork to Parks, which did we all play that, or
Did you play that, Ian?
I feel like I've definitely seen it out.
Yeah, it's one of the games we played online.
I feel like I've definitely played this. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, it was the one when you're taking a walk through national parks and you're gaining kind of like
It has,
experiences and trying to take
wooden elk and
photos.
shit.
I don't
Little
think
wooden elk.
I don't think it had a little wooden elk part in it. I don't think. Hang
Yes.
on.
It's like a turtle.
Do you know what? I think it might have been Phil, Andy, me, and you.
It
that
might
played
have
it.
been. Yeah.
I don't know if Ian joined.
I think it was something different.
Yeah, I think you're right, Daryl. But
I think it's something different. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, I've not played this.
yeah, okay. So this comes courtesy of Board Game Geek. This story. Essentially, it says that this is kind of a spiritual successor to Parks. It sounds more to me like an adaptation of the rules that you already have with Parks, if I'm perfectly honest. Tell me, Daryl, if this sounds familiar to you.
Go.
In Trails, players hike back and forth along the trail, collecting rocks, acorns, and leaves, taking pictures, and encountering wildlife to gain bonuses. At Trailhead and Trail End, you can turn in resources to earn badges, after which you start back in the other direction. As players visit the trail end, the sun sets over the trail. As night falls, trail sites grant more powerful actions, but they won't last forever. When the sun leaves the trail, the last round of play takes place. Then the player with the most points from collected badges, photos taken, and bird sightings wins. So, as I was reading
Parks,
this,
right? You're talking about Parks.
no, this is Trails.
It's like legit, exactly. It's a bit like the Oceans game, and the other games are similar to the Evolution games. Like they are basically the same game, but in a different kind of package.
So they kind of elaborate a bit later in the article and stuff like that, and they even say, like what wasn't mentioned in here, you have a canteen that you can drink to move any number of spaces. Yeah, so it's kind of like you keep reading on and think, is this just Parks? Like, I think it's definitely an adaptation of it. It sounds like they've looked at Parks and thought, what else can we do with this? And they've adapted it somewhat into something else, because it was very much, you weren't collecting acorns, leaves, and whatever the other thing was. In Parks, instead you were kind of like collecting experiences. So you like had mountains, you had sun, you had water, which kind of reflect the kind of sights you'd been seeing over the course of it.
Am I right in thinking you bought the national parks?
Yeah, so once you so again where it says it's got a trail beginning and trail end, again in parks you had a beginning of your journey and an end of your journey, and when you get
Yeah.
to the end of the journey, you could trade in your experiences to kind of take the experience of a park to
Mm.
score points. So again, there's so many similarities between these two. It sounds like this time, other than going one way, you can then go back the other way as well.
Yeah.
And like they say, the sun sets and the abilities get the abilities of the locations you're landing on somewhat change over the course of it. So it, like I say, it certainly sounds like they've taken parks and adapted it. I'm not completely opposed to this. Like I really enjoyed the game of parks that we played.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. It was a weirdly calming game
Yeah,
from
uh,
what we're normally. Yeah.
yeah. It was just kind of like one of these things of it was sort of a race kind of thing where you were trying to move along this line, but if you were taking too long to go across it, someone else and everyone else reached the end, you would just sacrifice the rest of your one of your travelers' journey. So you kind of had to prioritize a bit and jump spaces sometimes in order to do others. It kind of felt, oh man, what was the name of the game? I think it was called Tokaido, where again you were moving across Japan and you were having experiences and stuff like that, and you could either choose to go slowly and visit every single space, or you could jump certain spaces and do the things that are more important to you, because the first person to reach the current end of that particular part of the journey, they get first choice on what food they can buy at the hotel. So and they were worth quite a lot of points, so you didn't really want to take too long moving across it. There's a similar kind of system in parks, and it sounds like they're doing the same thing with trails. Um, then I have a question for you, then, Daryl. If you already owned a copy of Parks, would trails sound appealing to you?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? 'Cause it's almost like if they'd have done it as an expansion to Parks, possibly. Um, I don't think so. I know it sounds really stupid. I like the game. I don't own the game, but knowing that you own that game, I would be more inclined to say I would buy this game, and then it would be a case of I'd have a similar Parks experience for me to play with people and
Mm,
bring it to nights and stuff. Whereas you could bring the original Parks. So it's the same as you've kind of bought Oceans, and I have Evolution, and they are similar in certain ways. They're not like Ocean sounds a way bigger game to what I have, but it's not like you would buy the whole set. Do you know what I mean? Because you would just go, oh, well, Daryl has that, we can play that. I want to play Oceans today. Okay, play Oceans.
mm.
It's very yeah. I don't think so. It's a shame, but if it was very different, if it was just the same company that made it, same artwork, which is nice, same everything about it, yeah, maybe. But I think it's just too. It sounds too similar.
Yeah.
Too similar.
And just to get a contrast of it, Ian, as someone who hasn't played Parks, does this look and sound appealing to you?
It looks incredibly similar,
Yes.
like remarkably similar.
Yeah. I think even the artwork, I think, is done by the same people again. Like, you can see the
The
presentation of the
artwork's
two.
beautiful. To be fair, like it looks lovely.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I would want two of the same painting hanging in my home.
Yeah, sure.
It looks really nice.
Yeah, so
Are the mechanics different enough to justify it?
well, this is why I thought
hard to say about having played either of them.
that's why I thought I'd ask you, like, does this sound like a game that would be appealing to you, having not played Parks?
Having played neither,
Yeah,
I would probably struggle to have made the distinction between the two.
right, okay. That's fair enough.
But that is from someone without the experience of having played either, which,
Yeah.
I think in that scenario, if I've not played it, then I'm not really in the best position to make that call. But
Yeah. I saw another really cool game.
I'm interested to play both.
Yeah, I'm becoming a real big fan of Keymaster games. They I don't know whether they released it just yet or whether it's still on the way. But there is a game, and I've forgotten what it's called now, where you're doing heists. You kind of like pick your scenario, what you want to do. I think it's like between London, Rome, and Paris or something like that. And it's this really neat
Sounds
game
good.
where you're kind of drafting cards and then placing them on different locations across the different countries in order to kind of almost gain control of certain areas whilst also just kind of like pilfering little bits of treasure away from them before your opponent can. So you're kind of racing to see who the best thief is, kind of thing, across a city. I've forgotten
Sounds
what the
good.
game's. I've really forgotten what the game's called now, but it's by the same guys that do Trails and Parks, and it looks absolutely awesome. Anyway, moving on, we also have The Hunger, which which looks really interesting. It's by Renegade Games. It's
Is it
actually
called Caper?
Caper. That's it. Yeah, yeah. Um, The Hunger. Anyway, um, The Hunger is a deck building, push your luck game that's coming out. The idea is that you're all playing different vampire clans, and you're trying to race across the country, turning people into vampires and feeding on them, fulfilling secret missions and stuff like that by building a deck of cards, basically. Um, I think it said something about eventually acquiring a rose and returning to your castle before sunrise. So, obviously, it sounds a little similar to a game called Clank, which I do own but haven't had the chance to play yet. Where the idea is, again, your deck building, each card will generate movement, buying power, and attack power. And the idea is you're delving deeper into a dungeon, and eventually a dragon's going to wake up, and you need to get out before it kills you. So it sounds like this shares a lot of DNA with that. Because if you don't make it back before sunrise after going on your killing spree, I suppose you just die and the game's over. There's not an awful lot that I'm really seeing. There's not a lot of information other than that I can see right now on this article. But it is designed by Andrew Garfield, not Andrew Garfield. Jesus, what was his first name?
Richard.
Richard Garfield, the guy that does Magic the Gathering, Keyforge, all those kind of games. This is kind of like his next big game, not the actor from Spider-Man, but
Andrew Garfield.
but yeah, like
Was that an impression? What was that? Is he a Pokemon?
Well, no, I just said that name. I don't think he even sounds like that.
Andrew Garfield.
I'm Andrew Garfield. I don't know. I'm sorry, Mr. Garfield, if that's what you if you take offence to this, because I know you're an avid listener.
We also know that you are, in fact, now a Pokemon. You're
Yeah.
only capable of screeching your own name.
That's
But yeah,
funny.
it essentially says that during the game, players spend speed to move their vampires around the map, hunt humans worth victory points, and add new cards to their deck. The game ends at dawn, after which the surviving player with the most victory points on their card wins. So yeah, again, this does sound like kind of like Richard Garfield's take on Clank, basically. What do you guys think of this one? The look of this?
I love the art, but like,
It's not dark, is it? Like
no,
you'd
it's
expect from most of these
almost
kind
like
of games.
creepy but kind of silly.
Yes, exactly.
I like Friar Tunk,
Right. Yeah.
the guy in the bottom right. He's like, ooh.
Yeah. But yeah, you guys. I mean, I've had a chance to like mess around a little bit with Clank. Haven't been able to actually play it yet with people. Have you guys ever played something similar to this kind of thing, both a deck building and kind of a bit of a push your luck kind of game?
Not that I can think of.
No, I'm trying to think of something.
Not something that has like a time restriction as well.
Yeah, I mean,
Also, I guess speed, isn't it? The restriction. Like, they spend speed to move them around the map.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that isn't entirely clear yet, is how they're going to time it. So, like for example, in Clank, there's this whole mechanic where basically there's a build up of rage and stuff like that the dragon will have. So every time someone makes too much noise moving through the dungeon, they have to put some of their coloured cubes in there, and you eventually draw out the cubes whenever the dragon goes to make an attack. When they draw out the cubes, they might be black cubes, which means nothing happens, but if it's of a colour of one of the players, that goes onto their health bar, and when their health bar is full, someone's died, the dragon wakes up, and everyone's in a race to get out at that point. Also, if someone delves deep into the dungeon and grabs a treasure, they have to grab one of the treasure things, is a caveat before you can escape the dungeon, and gets out, they can then trigger the game end as well. And I think everyone gets something like 5 more turns to get out of the dungeon, otherwise they're out the game, regardless of how much treasure they've been able to get. So there's this really neat kind of push or luck kind of element. So some people might look at the various cards that are currently on the buying row, because much like any other deck building, you've got money available to buy cards that go into your discard pile that eventually come into your main hand. So that's kind of how they time it in Clank. This one, I don't know whether there's going to be a similar thing. It doesn't really show off the timing mechanic on here as far as I can see. Don't know whether any of you guys have seen something, but I can't. I'm looking at the back of the box.
It just says players spend speed to move.
Yeah. So again,
which I assume that's how it's timed. Is you have this amount of speed and you have to get around the map. That other than, but I mean, I might be wrong. It's not clear.
Yeah. Final thoughts. What do you guys think of this one?
I think it looks quite niche.
Intrigued,
I like
but
the
not
look of it.
excited.
Yeah.
My experience with Andrew Garfield is that he makes a mediocre Spider-Man. Actually, really liked his Spider-Man, but at the same time, I hated Keyforge. So
that's true. Whereas, you know, I still kind of I would enjoy a game of Magic the Gathering if I sit down and played it, and I do enjoy Keyforge. So
if you paid me, I might enjoy a game of Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
I'd have to have been like, I don't know, drunk and or paid.
Yeah.
Wow, that's some extreme. Yeah, Jesus.
I just
Okay.
think, I've got my own opinions on that, and they're not for now.
Okay then. So with that is the end of our news.
Oh, mine, no news.
So now we move to our next segment, which is what we have been playing.
Oh, what is it? What have you been playing?
Well, I think I'm the only person that's actually played
I've
anything.
been playing, yeah.
And I haven't played an awful lot, to be honest with you. The first thing, though, that I'm going to talk about is Hero Realms, and also kind of Star Realms at the same time, because they're pretty much the same game. I don't know whether you guys have ever seen this whenever you've been in Toyman or anything like that, because this game gets just about everywhere. It comes in tiny little boxes, but what you get,
I've seen.
what you actually get inside of these is a full deck building experience. So it's your simple stuff. If everyone starts with 10 cards, Star Realms plays up to 2 players straight out the box, which is a tiny little almost playing card size box. It's a little bit bigger than a playing card box, but it's still very, very tiny. Hero Realms, which is the one we actually played, is got a little bit of a larger box, but the difference is that with Hero Realms, it's ready to play 4 players, whereas Star Realms is only for 2 players. However, if you bought Colony Wars, which is it's Star Realms but with a different set of cards in it, basically, you can mix the 2 together and then you get a 4-player game out of that. And it is just a very basic deck builder, but one that is small enough to fit in your pocket and carry around with you. And if you've ever seen like the state of boxes of most deck building games, they're usually pretty big. So this is why Star Realms especially is so popular. So the idea is, again, you've got your 10 cards to begin with. They've got buying power and they've got attack power on them. You got 2 cards with attack power on, and all the rest are buying power to begin with. You got a row of cards, and you buy your cards, put them in the discard pile. Eventually, they go into your main deck, and your hand generally gets stronger as the game goes on. And they tend to start slow and then pick up. These ones, like, if I was going to compare them to any deck building game, I'd probably compare them to the DC deck building game. And this completely blows that game out of the water. Like, I don't see any reason why you would keep your DC deck building game other than theme if you own these games. Because what's also really appealing about this as well, the games are short as well. Like, you can smash out a game of this in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. Even if you're playing with 3 or 4 people, generally they go by very, very quickly. Very fast paced, unlike something like the DC deck building game, which sometimes you can be sat around for a couple of hours playing. So yeah, this is so much better, so much nicer. Obviously, with the Star Realms, the idea is you've got bases that you will build, and then you've got your little support ships as well that will do everything else. Your bases are the ones which will stay in front of you over the course of the game. Your ships are kind of like one-time use, and then they go back to your discard pile. Some of the bases will act as pretty much guard cards, which mean you can't directly attack the other player or attack any of their other bases until a base which has a certain word to it, and I've really forgotten what it was. In Hero Realms, they're champions, so you have a champion in front of you, and they may have the guard ability on them. And if they've got the guard ability, it means you cannot attack that player or any of their other champions until that guard is gone. And like I say, in Star Realms, you have a similar thing with that as well. The only difference between the two is theme, really, other than the fact that you can play 4-player right out of the Hero Realms box. I do, though, also have another Hero Realms box, which was called something like Battle at Thanadar or something like that. You can turn it into a cooperative campaign, so you can change it from what is a competitive 4-player game into a 4-player game where you can actually try and fight these big boss characters and work together through them, and you can improve your character as well, because if you ever buy any of the character packs for Hero Realms, you also get ability cards that you can slap in front of your player that you can use at various times during it. Some of them you have to, say, pay a coin cost, so if you've got a couple of coins left over from buying all your cards and you've got nothing else to do with them, you can spend those cards to use your little ability as well and turn it onto its side for the round. And then each character also tends to have one ability that is a one-time use, and then it's gone for the rest of the game. And you get to kind of like develop these, make them better. There are also cards where you can add more health to your character at the start as well. So you can kind of develop your own little character across the campaign as well. I mean, I know you guys have definitely played deck building games before. How do you guys feel about quicker deck building games? That I think, like, for example, if I think the actual deck of cards that make up the row, I think it might be somewhere between 30 and 50 cards. It's not huge. So it's cool in one way, but also one of the things I can kind of see is it will make the game quite easy to remember, almost. So you can
right,
kind of,
yeah.
like, you can know that when certain cards come up, yes, I want to buy that one because that works really well with another one, which is probably going to come up soon because that deck's quite a bit smaller. I will say, though, we haven't hit that problem yet. Maybe it's because we don't know the game too well just yet. But also, because the games are quicker, it means you don't see half the cards as well, because the game's usually up before you're even halfway
Right,
through
okay.
that deck of cards. So how do you guys feel about something like that?
There's always something to be said for a game that you can get out, do, and finish.
Yeah.
Yep.
Before someone else arrives at, say, a game group.
Yeah.
Whether that limits its usability to a point where no one's meeting up to play that if it's that short. Do you know what I mean? Like, no one's going, do you want to come around mine and we'll play Star Realms? We'll go, do you want to come around mine, we'll play this. Daryl's going to be 30 minutes late, do you want to play a game of Star Realms whilst we wait?
Yeah.
And it always becomes the second fiddle. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because the level of popularity we got out of Bang, and that was always the second fiddle in that scenario. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's never going to be the focal point, is it?
It could be if you decide to play that campaign game, I imagine. I imagine that might add something to it. Bear in mind, they have just released the second box of the campaign as well, but I haven't got a hold of that. But yeah. I certainly think to myself, I will have no problem selling my DC deck building games now. Like, this 100% replaces it, and it takes up such a small space on the shelf as well. And
yeah, I think that's
a
the
better
thing,
game.
isn't it? It's very interesting that it's such a small. It's cheap as well. I was just looking. It's like, well, the Star Realms one is. I haven't seen the other one, but
10.
yeah,
It's like between 10 and
it's
12
kind of
quid.
crazy.
Yeah, amazing, really good value. Yeah, so that definitely like will replace something like that. It would also replace something like Marvel Legendary, I think, as well, which I know will piss a lot of people off. But hell, that game is just not that great. Like, if you want to talk about a quick game versus a game that can take ages to set up and then no time at all to sometimes finish, usually not because you've won, but because things haven't gone well very, very quickly and you lose very, very quickly. I tend to find in games of Marvel Legendary especially, your only quick games are only ever games where you've lost very, very quickly. You generally don't win very quickly. Like, things can go very wrong very quickly in it, and sometimes there's generally nothing you can do about it because you can't build up a good hand of cards quick enough to be able to combat what you're up against, basically. That's happened to us a few times, and when that happens and then you have to separate out all your cards and put them back together again, I know it's a little bit better now that you can buy like online apps and stuff that generate it for you, but that's something completely different. But anyway, I think Marvel Legendary is kind of a moot point at the moment because of Marvel Champions anyway. But yeah, I certainly can see where Star Realms and Hero Realms fit in. I think Star Realms is even in like the top 200 on Board Game Geek, I think. In fact, I might look that up right now. I think Hero Realms is a bit lower, but Star Realms, if it loads up quick, Star Realms is 120 in the rankings on Board Game Geek for that tiny little box. Which is a hell of an achievement. But anyway, yeah, that is Hero Realms and Star Realms. If you guys are ever around, I imagine I will be bringing that out.
We'll go on that.
100%.
Cheeky little go.
All right, another game that I have played recently, and is actually as well a game that wasn't released all that long ago either. Cartographers, which is not a roll and write, but it's certainly a write game. So Cartographers, you're all playing map builders. You've all been commissioned by the Queen or King, whichever, to build a map of a certain area. So everyone has their little sheet of paper, which has a grid on it. There are ruined spaces on the map, and if you want, you can play on the other side, which has a big cavern in the center of it, just to make things a little bit more difficult for you. You at the beginning of the game, you draw 4 different scoring conditions that get laid out along the top of the play area, each with a letter above it, A, B, C, or D. And then the idea is that you play through seasons, and each season will have a different scoring condition for each one. So it may, for example, say A and C, and your scoring condition under A might be connect up all of the mountains on your map with forests. So you've got mountain spaces as well. So, or it's something for every mountain you can connect up with forest, gain 3 points or something like that per mountain. Then scoring condition C might be, I think for us it was your second largest village settlement. And then what happens is over the course of the round, you will be drawing cards off a deck. There will be one monster ambush in there, which I'll get to eventually, and then the rest will be cards which will have what is it? It's forests, villages, farms, and rivers, I think it is, are the 4 things that you may have to draw. And it gives you either an optional type of feature to draw. So it may say, for example, forests or villages. And then on the bottom of the card, it will show between 1 and 2 grid formations. And you have to choose between those grid formations how you draw them on your map as well. So you link things together and you try and get as many of those scoring conditions as possible. As you're drawing cards off your deck as well, each card will have a number on it, which will then get added together with every other card that's been drawn that round. And when it reaches a certain number, then the season changes and the scoring conditions change. So you score everything that you've done on your map. You kind of add together, there are coin tokens that you may be crossing off your sheet over the course of the game. They'll add 1 point to you for each thing at the end of each season. You also will get a certain amount of points for the first condition that you had, so the A, B, C, or D, and then the second A, B, C, or D as well during that time. And then you'll also get a minus. Your minus will be any monster drawn on your map that hasn't been surrounded by other features. So when a monster does appear, when a monster gets drawn from the deck and gets shown, you pass your sheet either clockwise or anti-clockwise around the table, depending on what it shows on the card that got drawn, and your opponents get to draw the monsters on your map in the grid formation that it shows on there. So they're going to either try to cut you off with some of your scoring, if they see, oh my god, they're going to score really big with that thing unless I cut them off with these monsters here. Or they'll put the monsters somewhere where they're going to have a hard time surrounding it by features, in which case they'll be getting a minus score. And the thing is, these minus scores carry over from round to round. So for every round where they're not surrounding those monsters with features, they're getting a big minus score, which can really add up over the course of the game. So there's kind of a bit of a meanness to this one between players. They can kind of do things to interact with one another. At the end of each season as well, you add in another monster into the deck as well. So you may possibly get towards the 4th round where you've got you're on your last season, and there is a chance if you've drawn no monsters over the other current seasons, because the season ends before you could draw the card, you could end up having a season where you draw all 4 monsters at once, and it could completely screw the last round over altogether, which is kind of a neat little thing. So your scores also carry over from round to round to round. So just because you've drawn a card that says farms on it, and there's currently no scoring conditions surrounding the farms at all, you can still see the scores. Like, they're going to score in later rounds, so I might as well start setting something up in this round with the farms. So there is kind of like that whole thought process to it. I found it a very interesting... I don't want to call it a roll and write, but it falls into that sort of category of games. I found it a really interesting one. Like, there's not normally so much interaction between players with the monster, kind of like spawning and stuff. But also, it feels like there's less pressure on you in this game as well, because there's no minus score at the end for leaving gaps in your map. In fact, in some cases, it's even a positive thing. We had a scoring condition in R1, which was for every individual square that you had on your map that was completely surrounded by other features, you gained a point for it. So in some cases, you did want to leave these individual things everywhere. But it can come back to bite you in the arse, because... yeah. Because if...
was that me?
I believe so,
That's the sound of a ghost leaving someone's body.
It was a motorbike, I believe. But yeah, Sorry about that, guys.
But yeah, it's interesting because you don't want to be caught out in a situation where you can't draw um, either of the shapes that are on the current card, because if that happens, you're only allowed to draw a single square of one of the features anywhere on your map. So at that point, you're kind of probably going to be falling behind everyone else. It's a really interesting game. Like I said, the way it played was very different to any other writing game of its kind that I've played before. From the sound of that, how do you think you guys would handle something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely be keen to play it. It does seem like it's kind of interesting enough that it'd be one of those weird games that I would miss. There's a lot of games that look like this that I initially kind of go, it doesn't really appeal to me, kind of thing. But that's only on face value,
Yeah.
like of the box and stuff like that. So I'd definitely be keen to play it. I just, I don't know.
Do you know what when you explained it, it felt like the sort of game I'd want to play twice.
Yeah.
You play once and you'd be like, okay, I get it now, and then
Yeah.
you'd want to give it another go.
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to get the scoring conditions wrong as well. It happened with both me and Cindy in the game that we played between me, her, and Sean. Sean read the scoring condition right. Me and Cindy didn't. We thought it said score your largest village. What it said was score your second largest village. So me and her both built one big village and thought, oh, we've scored a ton of points in this one. And then Sean pointed out, it's your second biggest village. And then it's kind of, okay, we get absolutely nothing for this. Safe to say Sean won our game of Cartographers, and I think it was largely down to the fact that we misread the scoring card. Like on the first one, I think when I was explaining the scoring cards as well, I'm pretty sure I had said that your largest village scores points, so I was probably at fault for Cindy at least getting her score wrong, because I think she just took my word for it and just did it, so that was my fault. But anyway, that was Cartographers. The third and final game I have to talk about is Stonehenge and the Sun. I haven't played this properly yet. It's kind of got a version that you can kind of play on your own, so I've kind of messed around with that a little bit. Essentially, it's a game where you build little Stonehenge style structures, and you have this big wrecking ball in the middle of it.
Oh no!
You at times have to swing, and you have to get through various gaps in there. So it actually comes with 3 different variants of how you play. Like I said, 2 of them I could not play because I have no one to play games with, so I couldn't really try them out. The first one was just called Stonehenge and the Sun. It almost is an area control style game, where you start off with one piece on the board, one little Stonehenge piece, and your marker is put next to it. Then everyone else has their markers spread evenly throughout the board. The idea is on your turn, you take one of the stone pieces that are currently laid out around the board, and they place it somewhere, and then move their marker in between 2 points where stones are on the board, and then they have to swing the ball through it. If they do it successfully, then they get to carry on. They're still in the game, and everything's still great. The caveat is that you can't make an area where someone else's piece is currently. So you kind of have to work out how you can place it in a place where it makes a new area, basically. So you can't just put your stone down anywhere. The other caveat to that as well is you have to move on your turn as well. So you can't just put another stone bit down next to the stone that you're currently next to and say, that's my new area. You have to place it in such a way that you actually have to move your piece into a new area. That's then your claimed area for the time being, and you swing it through it. The other thing you can do on your turn is you can take another stone on the board that has been placed, and you can cap the top of a stone of 2 stones that are next to the area that you're in. I know this sounds a bit weird at this point. And then the idea is you get to stay in your same area and you can swing your thing through your area. If you do it successfully again, you get to carry on. So that's the one case when you can actually stay in the same space. However, what you have just done by making a stone arch is you've significantly reduced the space on the board where everyone else can then move to. If anyone ever knocks down one of the stone pillars, they take that stone and put it in front of them to mark as a minus score towards the end of the game. Game carries on until all the stone pieces have been placed at some point, and then whoever has the least minus points to their score at the end wins. Like I say, haven't been able to play that one yet, but that's the main game of Stonehenge in the Sun. The second variant is called Orbit, and what you have to do is you have to take your wrecking ball and you have to hoik it round the room so that it's creating an orbit. Then the idea is once it's gone round a certain point 3 times, everyone then starts doing a mad grab around the table to build a stack of 5 stones high. Not just 5 stones high in front of them, but also on the opposite side to them as well. If anyone touches the string or the ball as it's orbiting round, they're out, basically.
I've got no idea what's going on.
No? Okay.
I've completely, I just...
This is a separate game.
I can't even imagine it.
This is now...
It sounds like it should be so simple, and my brain can't even comprehend it.
Okay, so I'll talk about the last game, which is the one that I have been playing. I've forgotten what it's called. It's called Skills of the Sun. So the idea is you have a completely different board. Do you know what? I've still got it set up here. So you turn your board over to the opposite side, which kind of shows something like that. Basically, a circle that has a load of lines drawn through it. You then have a number of these cards that get drawn as well. And they show you where you have to set up various stones across there, and then how you have to try and swing it through there. And it is way harder than it sounds. Like some of them...
That looks real difficult, and I want to give it a go.
That is genuinely really difficult. I sat up here for about 10 minutes trying to get it right. Did do eventually, but it took a long time. But the idea of the game is, like... I kind of just played this because I wanted to muck around with it, because you've got this deck of cards here, and they've all got different ones. Some of them are really easy like that, and then some of them are like the one that I just showed you. And if you were playing it properly, I just did it I just want to give these things a go and just try swinging this thing about a bit. The way you're supposed to play is you're meant to draw 3 cards, and then the player whose current turn it is, they choose one of those cards and they try to do it. If they fail and knock something over, the next player then gets the opportunity to try it. And then once someone succeeded at it, it then moves to the next player, who then gets to choose the next card out of a choice of 3, and they get to do it. And then you add up the points, which are these little suns at the bottom here. So in other words, you do want to sometimes try and do the more difficult ones because they're going to net you more points towards the end. But at the same time, it could end up getting you stuck in this loop of trying these various things over and over and over again, and everyone just desperately trying to get it right, kind of thing. I enjoyed that a hell of a lot. I enjoyed just setting it up and doing it. Do you know what? Something I am going to show you guys as well. This comes with a variety of ways of attaching your wrecking ball to basically your ceiling, and only one of them is really reusable constantly, which is an S hook that they say if you happen to have a lampshade roughly in the center of where your table is, hang it from your lampshade. But then they give you a screw-in hook that you screw into your ceiling, or you get an adhesive hook. So what you actually end up having is, I don't know whether you can see it very well from there.
Yeah, the little thing.
There is a hook you can kind of see now that is permanently stuck to my ceiling, all for the point of having that ball hanging there.
I was going to ask, because I just assumed there was like a tripod-esque structure.
Nope, not at all. This just hangs from your ceiling. Hence why you've got a game like Orbit, where you just swing the ball round and it just does a massive loop around the room constantly. It's not the most practical game, really. It's not like something you could take around someone's house. It kind of feels like this is a game that you just have to find a room to set it up in and then that game is just associated with that room forever. Luckily, you do have a little thing so you can just unhook it and take it down, but the actual hook is then stuck wherever you put it. It does come with 4 different self-adhesive bits for the actual hook that I'm using there, but 4 uses of that, and then you're stuck with the 4th one, really. So
Tell you what, that's four types of self-adhesive is value for money.
yeah, I mean,
What? Tell you what other? Can you name another board game that gives you a self-adhesive in the set? No,
no, not off the
because
top
there
of my
aren't
head.
any.
I bet you there are. So I bet you.
Again, Twilight Imperium's like, oh, it's really long. Where's your adhesive, Twilight Imperium?
But yeah,
My God.
that is Stonehenge in the Sun. I really want to play more of it. Give it more of a go because it just looks like chaotic fun.
Does it?
But yeah, apart from that, that is everything I've been playing. So, I mean, yeah, that's probably everything that we've got for this week then. So,
Yes, I was going to say one thing in the news that I completely forgot about, and it's a really
Sure.
minor thing, so I'll do it quickly.
yep.
If you go to Hero Forge, which is for those who don't know, a company where you can make custom models that they will make for you and send to you. You can go to Hero Forge now and you can add decals to your models, like shields and stuff. So it's just an update to it, and it's a really little thing, but it's I know it's something that people I know use to make their RPG characters for tabletop RPGs.
Yeah.
And I know some people just do it to make their like a little token for playing it on Roll20 or something. But it is very cool, and they've added some stuff to it, including decals. So worth a look if you use that and you'd forgotten about it, or you don't use that and you feel like you could use that.
Okay. All right. So, I suppose with that, thank you very much for joining us on this episode of the podcast. If you would like to follow us on the social medias, you can find us at Everybody Dice on Twitter and at Everybody Dice Show on Instagram. You can also find our Facebook page, which is just down there, facebook.com/everybodydice. Apart from that, thank you for watching. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment down below if you've played any of the games we've mentioned today. Or have an opinion on any of the news stories as well. Please do. Also, there should be something on screen around about now, some videos that you can click as well and watch more of our
click
stuff.
it.
Please do.
You won't. Bet you won't. Go on, click it. Bet you won't.
They've clicked it!
Anyway, thank you very much for joining us with this podcast, and we'll see you again soon. Till next time. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.